Hello, everyone, and welcome to my session. I'm Peter FÖLDHÁZI Jr., and I will talk about the tri-layer testing framework for you today, and also about the flow model pattern, which I came up around more than 3 years ago when I found some difficulties at that current project, but I will talk about this solution a bit later. Basically, it will help you in creating testing frameworks and cutting the costs, the maintenance costs in the long run. So let me introduce myself. I am working as a lead software test automation engineer at EPAM Systems for more than 4 years now. And currently my position is basically at the competency center, at our competency center, helping our testers and QAs all around the globe with all their testing activities. And I also have some knowledge. Actually, my most experience comes from mobile testing, especially the ones who were here 2 years ago. You might have already known this. And I also have some experience in web and desktop test automation. OK, so hopefully today this is going to work. And this shouldn't have been the first slide. Or maybe, well, this is a much older version, so sorry, I will have to adapt. So I would have like to share some pictures with you of what I have done this year. And I already presented this tri-layer testing framework in January at the Software Engineering Conference in Philadelphia. It was really a big dream come true for me, as I was in the US for the first time. And I had the chance to go up to tall buildings, the tallest buildings of Chicago, and to see one of my favorite basketball teams, the Bulls, and also had the chance to walk around Manhattan, have some real Mexican food finally, and go to the Fifth Ave, to the Broadway, from the Madison Square Garden to the Times Square, and to the Central Park. It was really an amazing feeling for me. And I also go to other events. We had the Test NT at EPAM last year, and we also had a Palin QA event at the beginning of this year. And I presented some mobile tips and tricks with my colleague Balázs Kékes, who is also here in the conference. And some of my hobbies, I like chilies and producing the hottest chili peppers in the world. I like watching boxing and MMA events, and I do some martial arts myself as well. And I'm honored to be practicing together, training together with our World and European Championship karate fighters. And lastly, I would like to say that I'm honored to be standing in front of you for the 3rd time in a row. So thank you for having me here with you. So let's see today's agenda. First, I'm going to talk about some basics of automation. Then I'm going to introduce you some of the current methods of creating testing frameworks. And I will let you know why I believe they are flawed. Then I'm going to show my solution, for which I have some more methods to improve and enhance your framework creation. So let's get it started. In an ideal world, we have customers and business people who give us perfect requirements. Yeah, I have never heard about that before. So I know that when I'm talking about that, then you say that dream on little princess. But I hope that we all will have some better quality requirements, every one of us, which is easier for us to create applications for and test. But obviously, that's what we work for, and that's what we get paid for. So that's how we ensure quality as well, to be there and to make sure that everything is fit. So when we receive the requirements, it's a long story to get implemented test scripts. This is how my process looks like, how I am processing test, requirements into test scripts. And I slice them up into manual and automation team, but most of the time, or many times, the two are the same. But nonetheless, just for making sure that we can separate the tasks, I separated them as well. Let's go into deeper details. So I will give you the chance to think about some examples yourselves. And I will be silent for 10 seconds, I promise. And please think about obstacles that might occur when you would like to implement test cases, automate them. So let's say that there's an Android application for which you have 100 test cases, and only 50 out of those can be automated. What can be the issues that prevent us from automating the rest 50%? OK, I believe the 10 seconds has passed, or have passed. So let's see what I have here. So my first example in the first column is typically OS, so operating system related stuff. So when you cannot reach certain activities or applications through your application under test. Let's say that you have Android or iOS application, and you would like to automate that. You go through the application, do some things here and there, then you open an application, for example, Facebook, in order to log in. But once you opened Facebook, you cannot return anymore. And you cannot assert, can't validate whether you opened Facebook itself. And sometimes it might be difficult with some tools or on some operating systems, not on everyone. And of course, we know this second column really well, because I guess you have heard about this, or you have heard this sentence that we don't have enough testers, we don't have enough automation engineers, or we don't have enough time, we should have finished yesterday. This is the same for automation as well sometimes. And of course, which have been talked about today or have been discussed already is the third column. There are many cases that you are unable to, either unable to automate or you shouldn't. Because if you look at an application, then there's no better device to tell whether an application is good or not than the human brain. So let's go to the next automation chapter, or task. This is the merger. So I have two guiding principles here. One, if there are two identical cases, many times it's best to make one out of those two. For example, when you would feed them with different data, different parameters, you can execute the same test with different outcomes, depending on the parameters. Also, sometimes you don't necessarily want to test all the edge cases. It's not always the best solution to do that, but sometimes it's just better, and it cuts the time spent on implementing these test cases. The second one is the merger. So if there are two test cases that follow each other in a user flow, then it's best if you execute them after each other. Sometimes you might have the requirement to execute one of these test cases, then tear down everything, and then set up the framework again, and then execute the next one, and then again quit your Selenium driver, for example. And it's a lot of time. When you are doing it, when you are executing these test cases manually, you don't do that either. So why would you do that in manual test execution? OK, so before moving on to the next topic, let me just step back a little bit from engineering and talk about one of my main hobbies, karate. So as I mentioned, our fresh European champions came home recently from the European Championships. And they earned a lot of medals, mostly gold medals. And for example, one of the biggest achievements is finally winning the team fight, the male team fight. And how does it look like? So basically, when you go there, you try to score, try to hit the other one. And if it's a clean shot, but it's not clean enough to hit, to knock out someone, then you get the score. And normally you have like 3 minutes to fight, and either the time passes by and the person who scored more is going to win, or you have so much more or so many more scores or points that you are going to win before the time passes by. And in team fights, in normal, regular team fights, you have several different fighters in your team, and they fight someone from the other team, try to earn as much point as possible, try to make sure that the other person doesn't, and in the end, it's being summed up. And then the team with the more points scores. But there's another kind of team fight called rotation. And in rotation, you need a different style. So basically, you are not working for exhausting the other person and jumping around and kicking and trying to make sure that he or she cannot come in and has to jump in and out. You should score as early as possible. You go in and try to score. And then if you are getting exhausted, your coach is going to replace you with someone else in the next round. So it's not a good strategy to go there and trying to exhaust the other one, because you are going to get exhausted as well. So you need a different style, a different strategy for that. And as long as your coach knows that and makes sure that you all follow this strategy, and you all follow this strategy, then you are going to win, or hopefully you are going to win. And we need strategy in software engineering as well, and in testing as well. And we need structure, but not this kind of structure. And why is that? So basically, there are 2 occasions or 2 situations I would recommend the thing I call the big mess. It is about just sitting down, writing code, yeah, drinking some coffee. OK, finished, I go home, and then it will work. Well, for a while it will, but maybe the application is going to be updated and all that stuff, and it's not going to work anymore. Or there could be other issues as well. So when your application is small, or you know that it's not going to change ever, then it's OK to just write some code, like 8 or 10 scripts, and it will work in the long run. Also, in case you would like to evaluate tools, then it's a fast method to try it out, whether it works and how it works. But in huge products, for testing huge products, it's a real pain. And this is what you're going to get if you implement test scripts that way. Actually, he's my godson, and he's turning 4 very soon, so happy birthday, Mickey. And the other solution is already a huge step forward. Here you already have test libraries, and it's really good because you cut huge time from maintenance. But still, I'm not really fond of this solution. Why is that? Because let's say that one of my colleagues comes to me and tells me, hey, Peter, I heard that you are doing Android and you have a solution for Android testing, automating them. Could you please give it to me? Well, nope. Why is that? Why are you so mean to me? Well, in this case, I'm not mean to that person. It's because I could give it to that person, but that person would need to erase all the product-related, all the application-related code from my code. And that's a lot of time. And maybe it would be just better if that person created his or her own solution. So whenever I see someone using this approach, this is how I look like. So let me show you my solution, the Tri-Layer testing framework. But before that, I'm going to talk about the basics, some basics, why the frameworks are good and why we need to use them, or why it's useful if we do. I have some examples over there. Maybe you could come up with some more as well. But basically, for me, one of the key elements here is that it's readable. It's easy to read even for someone who hasn't been doing any test automation before, but has some coding experience. Or someone who is new on the project, it's still very useful. Also, for maintenance reasons, because you don't want to sit down and only do maintenance your whole time, so you would like to cut it back. And this is where the facet pattern is going to help you. And here I have a testing-related example. Okay, so you have the test scripts on the left. You have your libraries here, the flow models, screen models, the structure models, and you basically hide all the code that is not necessary for others to see, and this helps making it more readable. And also, you don't have, if you have like 50 test cases executing the login, then if the login changes, the flow itself, then you only have to change it here in the login flow. And if the locator, or to see how you can locate one element, if the locator changes, for example, the login button, then you only have to change the code here at one place instead of at 50 different places. So here I present you the Tri-Layer testing framework, where you have two separate libraries, two separate layers for libraries now. Let me go into details with them. First, going from bottom to top, the core layer. This is where you have the common code, basically. And the base test is the library that you can give to anyone who is working on the same platform. So basically, for example, if I work on Android and you would like to start a new project with Android, then you can reuse my code. Or if we have a project, the same project, but you are working on a different application, then you can use the project-related common libraries. Or if we are working on an Android framework or something like that, where we use GPS, we can use GPS mock libraries as well, or other libraries. And these are all application-independent libraries. Next one is application-dependent, the application-dependent libraries. And I sliced them up into two different kinds of class files, the flow models and the structure models. And I will go into more details with them, how they look like and what their responsibility is. And the last one is obviously the test layer, where you have the runnable test scripts. And now we reached our last chapter, the flow model pattern, which is going to be more technical stuff and with more code. And I try to make it clear. I know it's not easy understanding it in just 5 or 7 minutes, but I hope it will be clear enough. So first, I'm going to talk about the page object pattern. Those who attended Michael Paletash's, so the tutorial and the keynote presentation of Michael Paletash have heard about Selenium already. And who were on the tutorial know about the page object at least a little bit. So what is this useful for? Basically, if you have an application and you would like to test it and make sure that you can rewrite your code at one place, then you create class files, models of each pages, where you store all the structure-related stuff, all the elements, the locators, and also the user actions. And that's where I make a difference in the flow model pattern, because I slice it into two. So basically, I have the structure models, where I only care about where I am. Where am I? Which screen or page I am on. And I have, on the other side, the user actions, which is, I believe, more important from a tester's point of view and from a user's point of view. Obviously, it is important where I am, on what screen I am doing what, but it's even more important what I actually do. And if you have learned about or heard about the UML diagrams, then this might be very well, familiar for you. This looks like a state machine diagram. And basically, these screen models are the states, And the flow model tells you how you transit from one state to another. So you can go from one screen to another, go back, go there again, stay there, do some stuff over here, and finish your login phase and with the logout as well, if needed. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. So let's say that this is an Android example. And on Android, you don't only have screens. You also have toolbar. On iOS, you have the navigation bar, which you can find on several different screens. So obviously, you won't store each and every toolbar element on each and every different screens. You would instead store them separately in a widget file, in a widget model. Basically, they are the same as screen models, but we just call them widgets to make sure that we understand that they are not screens, and their purpose is a little bit different. And you can do the same flow here, and it's easier to understand what we are actually doing in this application. Going on, I'm going to show you some coding examples from now. And this is an implementation of the Tri-Layer testing framework, just a smaller example. So you have the base test here. The login flow accesses the base test, and the screen and widget models access it as well. The login flow is going to access these models as well. And the login test, ideally after refactoring, will only talk to the login flow. And well, the sun is here, but I hope it's still visible. So here we have an Android example with using Robotum for test automation. And I have some views, username, login button, etc., where you can see here that I have resource IDs as well. Basically, the resource IDs tell which item I would like to locate. These ones are maybe not the best examples because they are easy to read. But sometimes you don't have resource IDs that are easy to read, or maybe you don't have resource IDs to elements because they are dynamic and you have to refer to them with indexes. There could be many such examples. And in that case, it's easier to read these words. Let's see how the test itself will look like using only the screen models. So you have these screen models or screen functions here, let's say that, or screen elements. So you already know where you are. You also know what you are doing here because you can really click on view and type text. But still, just look at it, and if you glanced at it for 3 seconds for the first time in your life, would you be able to tell what this test does? I think you wouldn't. I wouldn't either if I saw them the first time. Of course, I know what they do because I wrote them, but it would be more difficult for me if I sat there. So let's enhance this solution and introduce the flow models. So now you have these different functions here, or actions, like opening the login screen, typing your username and password, and finishing your login. Especially this finish login is very long because you have 4 lines here. Some of them are long in itself. And it's really good because you hide the actual code. When you have to rewrite it, you will know what to rewrite. But you want to read it, want to read what the test is doing, then this is what you get. So you basically are going to open the side menu by pressing the hamburger button. Then you are going to tap on the login button to open the login screen, type your credentials, Darth Vader, I am your father, and then finish the login and check whether you actually logged in as Darth Vader. After that, you can log out by, again, opening the hamburger menu, with the menu with the hamburger button, and then tap on the logout button. It's easy to read. And if you want to maintain this code, you just have to go down to the flow models, to the flow models and to the screen and widget models. So when you get the errors and all the stuff, you know where you have to fix your code. And it's much easier for those who are new on the project or those who don't have that much experience with coding but have little experience. And yeah, that's all she wrote. You can see the difference. The one on the left side is going to execute the very same test as on the right side. So if you liked my solution and you would like to make sure that you can implement it on your current project or on your future projects, and one of the stakeholders or customer, product owner doesn't believe you, this should tell them why it's good. This is only one reason, but I hope it will be already enough. If not, then you can ask me several questions. And thank you for sitting here. I hope you liked my presentation, and I'm all ears. Thank you.